Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. Breaking news, former FBI Director Jim Comey indicted, lying before a Senate committee, obstructing that proceeding, that committee proceeding, in the same way by lying. Both are felonies, up to 5 years. This is about whether Comey lied when he said to a senator he did not authorize anyone in his office to leak about the Trump investigation when he was head of the FBI. I'm going to keep saying it. Ready? Because this is it. You're going to be hearing about this for a while. And here's how you keep it straight. When he was the head of the FBI, did he authorize the leak of information to the media? Okay? The last part is everything. When he was head of the FBI, did he leak? This is going to be a case of interpretation. Why? Comey said then and later and always that after he was dismissed and after Trump tweeted what he took as a threat, he asked a friend of his, and there are lots of names and all that, but that's not what matters right now. It is what he said versus what he did and when, okay? After he was dismissed, he says, after Trump tweeted, he asked a friend to leak some information into the media, okay? The Inspector General looked at this, okay, under the Trump administration, and they found that Comey broke some norms. How? By what he took home, by how he handled things, but that none of it was actionable, that there would be no charges. So what changed? I say what changed is Trump, that Trump wants to go after him. And you will hear that they have new documents that show Comey lied and leaked sooner. What are those documents? We do not know. They are not in this two-page indictment, nor do they need to be. Now, this is the DOJ bringing this, right? There's a prosecutor named Halligan who signed it. But this is Trump. This is revenge. This is lawfare. This is not justice, I argue to you. This is about satisfying just us, meaning one side. I think this is classic two wrongs. Some of the prosecutions of the president were wrong, were weak, and were brought out of political expedience more than prosecutorial discretion. I believe this is the same thing. I also think what Comey did to Hillary was way worse than what he did to Trump. And I know that that's not a legal analysis, but saying that there were more emails just weeks before the election is something the FBI would never do. Never what Comey did writing that letter. And then to say a couple weeks, oh, but there are not going to be any charges. So out of line, so disastrous, and he knew it. That was something the FBI never does. But that's a matter for another day. I'm just saying for your perspective. Now, I also say this because I know this timeline and the existing body of evidence very, very well, okay? Why? Because I got it wrong one night, and I realized that I had some things confused, so I really dove into the Inspector General report, and that is what you should do as well, okay? There is a timeline that you'll see on social media that may or may not have been put together by one of Trump's former lawyers. It is not accurate. Okay? It suggests in the timeline that leaks were coming out before Trump tweeted that had to be coming from Comey, so he must have lied when he said it. I don't think it's accurate. I don't think it's backed by anything. Okay? However, here's the best part. There is reason to believe that this comes down to the interpretation of what leaking versus sharing meant to Comey. Because remember, to lie to somebody, you got to have intent, right? You can be wrong, but not lying, okay? Why? Because you didn't take it the way that they meant it. How so? Well, in the Inspector General report, it says that Comey began sharing information that was FBI material, his lawyer, this professor friend, not mere musings, not just, hey, buddy, information about the investigation with people outside the office before he was dismissed. Did that get to the media? I don't know. Is that considered a leak that he was setting up? I don't know. But did it happen before Trump's tweet that he said triggered him to give it to his friend? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Does that pass muster? I don't know. I say it's iffy. But this is about payback as much as it is about proof. And again, relying on the dossier was the original sin. And that's not in these charges, but that is what is motivating these charges. This makes Comey the first former senior government official to be indicted for the investigation. And here's what the president says. All right, justice in America. One of the worst human beings the country's ever been exposed to, Jim Comey, former corrupt head of the FBI, today was indicted by grand jury on 2 felony counts. Remember, the grand jury, to find a true bill, which is what this is called, they did not have to be presented with the proof of these new emails that they say they have that changes the reckoning. They just needed to have a prosecutor suggest to them that they exist. Remember, this is the lowest bar in our process. All right? You know, the rest of what he says is not relevant. It's just he hates Comey. I want to look at this legally, but also politically, because that's what this is about, okay? Now, Mimi Rocah is a former prosecutor with the Southern District of New York. Former Trump attorney William Brennan also joins me right now. It's good to have you both. First, would either of you like to say that I am a disgrace to Fordham Law School and I have this all wrong?
No, I wouldn't say that, Chris,
No?
and thanks for having me, but because you have so much knowledge about it, you know, they say a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. You have so much knowledge that you may be 10 steps ahead of us. Let's talk about, I'm only here to talk about law. Politics is way above my game, but there's 3 ways.
Just law.
There's 3 vehicles a prosecutor can employ to charge. They can charge by complaint and warrant, and then within 30 days, you must have a grand jury return an indictment. They can charge by information. It usually is indicative of a potential plea, or they can charge by grand jury indictment, which means up to 25 people, independent citizens, return an indictment. And in my world, and in the prosecutor's world, it's here on the show with us, there's been a saying for about 45 years that a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. Well, we just saw that's not true because a gentleman was allegedly using a ham sandwich to throw against ICE agents, and U.S. Attorney Pirro couldn't get a grand jury to indict. So even though this is the lowest bar, up to 25 independent citizens have decided that this case gets through the first hurdle, notwithstanding any ire President Trump may have, or General Bondi, and I'm not saying they do. You had mentioned they do. So I don't know that this is lawfare because we have this firewall of a grand jury, and the grand jury returned this indictment. An indictment doesn't mean Mr. Comey's guilty. He's presumed innocent, but
no, it doesn't.
He's indicted.
Yeah. I got you. Listen, I totally get the process. You're not wrong, except about some of the motivations and the context and how high bar this is. Mimi, what is your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, we can't ignore the context in which this happened. You wanted to start at the grand jury. How did we get to a grand jury? The career prosecutor and prosecutors, we know this from reporting, said we should not indict this case. Now, that can be because they didn't think there was probable cause for the grand jury. It can be because the higher standard that prosecutors are supposed to use is, can you prevail at trial? Maybe that was their standard. Maybe it was both. We don't know. But career prosecutors said, not doing this, and even resigned. A Trump-appointed, not some deep state prosecutor, but a Trump-appointed, soon-to-be-confirmed prosecutor, right? Eric Siebert. And then Trump, after directing his attorney general to do this, and we also know from reporting that the attorney general and the deputy attorney general, who've gone along with everything Trump wanted to do, were also apparently not in favor of this and were defending Siebert. That has to be relevant. And then he installed a political loyalist who's a real estate lawyer. That's who went to the grand jury. Do I have faith in grand juries? Yes, I do. But I do believe that grand juries listen to prosecutors, and part of the check of a grand jury on us prosecutors is that we don't bring them something that using our discretion shouldn't be charged. Just because you can charge something doesn't mean you should. Just because you can get an indictment doesn't mean you should. And yes, we will have to see how this plays out, but I'm not going to let someone say that the whole slate is wiped clean by the grand jury when
I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all.
Order him to be indicted.
Meaning,
so
I
let's
didn't
talk
say
about
that at
what-
all. I hope it didn't come across that way. It's just that
Well,
if there is
it
some
came across
grand
that way.
conspiracy, the 25 grand jurors would have to be a part of it. And I don't think they
I
would.
never said
I don't
wait.
think there is.
No, they don't. Hold on, Mimi. No, Bill, they don't have to be part of it because, as everybody should know, the reason the ham sandwich thing came up is because the grand jury is a prosecutor's show. And I'm not here to damn the system, but they didn't even have to see these new emails. It's just probable cause that if these new emails exist and if they say what I tell you they say, do you think there might be a crime committed? So I get why they did what they did. The question is, will this pass muster? So, Bill, let's just focus on that one question. What do they have to show on the facts as you understand them to get a conviction on Comey?
All right, now we're jumping now, just so I make sure I answer the right question. We're not talking about what they have to show to get a grand jury to indict. They have to show, what do they have to show to get a conviction? Whole new bar. As you said earlier, grand jury's the lowest bar possible.
Yep.
The beyond a reasonable doubt bar, a trial is the highest bar. The Supreme Court has said, and nobody really knows exactly what reasonable doubt is. It's like when Potter Stewart said, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I say it. But the Supreme Court has said it's the type of doubt that will cause a person of reasonable sensibilities to pause and hesitate in a matter of importance. I always say, but I'm old, Ivory Soap used to say that it was 99 and 44 100% pure.
Yeah.
And that's about how high they have to do it. So the fact that Mr. Comey's been indicted means nothing. He is presumed innocent. And I'm sure that he'll get great lawyers. Actually, they should steal Mimi's arguments. They were fabulous. But in my district, my home district, the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, the conviction rate for the U.S. Attorney's Office for cases that actually
Very
go
high.
to trial is 98%.
Right.
So
very
anytime it's like legal cancer. Anytime a grand jury indicts, you're foolish if you're not concerned.
No, I get it. But Mimi, here, we know what this timeline's about, okay? And the Inspector General looked at it and said, look, he was sharing some things. I don't think he leaked anything to the media. I can't pin it to anything like that. So we're not going to charge. They say they have new emails. So what do they have to show for this to stick?
Well, I mean, as you said, they have to show intent. They have to show that he didn't just make a misstatement, if that is even what happened, but that he intended to mislead Congress. I don't know whether they have new emails or not. What we do know is that Michael Horowitz, who was the Inspector General at the time, independent under every administration, Republican, Democrat, has found fault with Republicans and democratically appointed
and
people.
Tough.
Yes, incredibly tough. And these career prosecutors from the Eastern District of Virginia, all of those people who actually have other perjury cases and cases to compare it to and understand prosecutorial discretion, et cetera,
Didn't
said
like the case.
we shouldn't do this. And I just want to raise one other thing. Yeah, jury, absolutely, beyond a reasonable doubt. But there's a lot of things to happen between now and then. I would expect to see a outrageous government conduct motion, which I think would have a lot of legs because this is outrageous government. This is government overreach at its worst. It should scare everyone when the president can say, go indict him. He's guilty of something. I want revenge. And they install political loyalists and they do it. That is.
But maybe you're hitting the wrong door. The president didn't indict Mr. Comey. The grand jury did. And you know, Chris, I remember at the time Mr. Comey indicted Martha Stewart on a very nuanced language case. These same arguments were made that it's so nuanced and so many
but you remember why? Mimi's not old enough, who, by the way, they brag about at Fordham Law School, by the way. They love you as a professor there, Mimi, by the way.
I'm old enough to remember Martha Stewart.
Here, I covered that case, and you know why they indicted her?
Arguments were made.
No, to Mimi's point, Bill, do you know why they indicted her? Because she told Comey and his people to get the hell out of her office when they came to talk to her and do it the nice way. And he got pissed off and he said, you want to do it that way? I heard the whole story from
So, Chris, you want to talk about lawfare? There's lawfare that Comey employed. But
he was
let me try to
not
answer
the
that question now.
president.
What they have to show, and I just read the indictment 30 seconds ago, so bear with me. What they have to show is that when Senator Cruz asked him those questions, and he incorporated
Right.
his earlier testimony that at that time that's untrue. And if they can show that, he's got a problem.
Right.
The other charge is obstruction, and that's a dangerous charge, and that will call for serious jail time.
But it's related. It's related. All right. Thank you very much. We'll talk more. But I appreciate how you set the table. Now, here's what matters most at this point of our understanding of what this is about. You heard what the president says. Jim Comey just put out his response, and here's what he says.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
Now, I want to be very transparent with you as I bring in Republican member of Congress, Dr. Rich McCormick, and Democratic member of Congress, Jonathan Jackson, because I believe this is about politics as much as anything else. I do not like having to defend Jim Comey. I don't like how he did his job. I thought what he did to Hillary Clinton was dirty and duplicitous and about him and his ego, and I think he affected the outcome of that election, okay? So, that said, this reeks of politics to me, Doc McCormick, and I get why Trump has good reason to be pissed about the dossier and the Russia investigation. But if we want it to stop, isn't this two wrongs make a right instead of moving back to justice being fairness under law and not about lawfare?
You know, one of the greatest things I love about you is you're fair, you're even-handed. You actually see both sides very well, and you research it. You laid out a great case. I hate to debate law. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a doctor. I like to talk about the CR. I like to talk about things that are going to affect the average, everyday American. That's what I want to talk about. I know we got to talk about this. It's the news of the day. It just happened. The legal system will figure it out. We do actually, as much as we despise our legal system, it's way better than most any other country in the world. I just got back from Thailand, Korea, Cambodia. We are special.
I agree.
Because of the balance and the separation of states, and I think of powers, and I think we're going to come to the right conclusion in the end.
All right, I'm going to let you punt because you're a doctor and because I like you. But look, the point here that I want to talk to you about, Representative Jackson, is that, you know, look, this is what he says you did to him, okay, is you found a reason and you went after him, and this guy was the instrument of his destruction, so now he's going after him. What is your posture towards what you want to see with this case?
Well, thank you so much. And Mr. Comey couldn't have a better defense attorney than you. You've laid out the case extremely well. My colleague, Dr. Rich McCormick, he understands the same facts. We have now blurred the lines between justice versus loyalty. This prosecutor is a real estate agent, a real estate attorney. They were specifically given an assignment. It was very targeted. This is about political retribution. The people that are being targeted are the people that the president asked the attorney general to go after, specifically Letitia James, that did the civil fraud, Mr. Adam Schiff, that led the prosecution for the indictment for the impeachment, Mr. Comey, that had led the investigation into his other work. This is very targeted. The American people are now the losers because of this. This has weaponized the Justice Department. And the people that had integrity in this part says, I don't have enough credible evidence to indict Mr. Comey. And they suffered the consequences. They were willing to resign. So this is a great opportunity for people of justice and courage and people that believe in the rule of law, that believe in our Constitution, to stand up. And so I applaud Mr. Comey for his courage to say he will not live on his knees and that he's willing to suffer the consequences and he's ready to go to trial.
I will
He should
comment
have
on
just
that a little
shut
bit.
up. He should have just shut up and done his job, and none of this would have ever happened. If he had just shut up and done his job, and not kind of have this grand sense of how he needed to make his witness because of what happened, like he did with Hillary and this, you know, he wouldn't be in the crosshairs as much. But Doc, make a point, and then I do want to ask you guys about why we need to have a continuing resolution. Why can't you guys just make a deal on a budget?
And that's what people care about the most, by the way, their future, the future of this nation. This case, I will say this, just like we don't indict, you know, it's an indictment, it doesn't mean you're convicted. You're innocent until proven guilty, but also the people who do the indicting, the people who have made this decision to move forward, they also shouldn't be judged until we know everything. And I think we need to make sure that we know all the facts on the table before we decide this is a bad decision or not. And that's why I'm holding reservation and judgment, not because I think that Comey's in the right or anybody else is in the right, because I'm waiting to see this play out, and that will bring us to the truth point.
Yeah, I'm with you. And again, I just try to be transparent with the audience up front, and I can't tell you how much of my life I've spent on this timeline of this investigation. And I wish I could go back. I wish I could go back to the pandemic. I wish I could go back to the Russia investigation. I wish I could go back to 9/11 and all the questions and things, but you live life going forward. So, fellas, thank you for weighing in on breaking news. I will have you back to talk about the budget and the CR, but we know it's going to be all noise, no signal tonight because everybody's on this. So I'll have you come back and we'll talk about it because I'm not in favor of CRs, man. I think we're extending the problem and you guys got to learn how to make deals. But thank you for being here together.
And thank you so much. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, and you are both welcome back. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow.
Richard for
I'll check with you guys.
Richard, thank you for agreeing.
Listen, I hope you guys can agree on a budget deal. All right? I appreciate you both for being here. It means everything to the audience. It means everything to the audience. Left and right, together to be reasonable. Thank you, my brothers.
Thank you.
4 minutes and 35 seconds. So, Tylenol. I'm sick. I don't care if you take it or if you don't. Talk to your doctor. I don't care. Here's what I don't like. Either, it's just like the Comey thing. Either you're going to do it better or you're going to do what you said was worse. I want to dig into exactly how screwed up the messaging on this Tylenol stuff is. And again, I don't care about Tylenol, all right? I care about how information is weaponized, and Dr. Oz was good enough to come to set us straight. If a pregnant woman takes Tylenol, is there a real chance it could cause autism in her child? The new government research through Harvard says we don't know. Maybe. Period. That's what it says. Look for yourself. But once again, we see science is being twisted to suit an agenda. And this is the administration that campaigned on, that promised you that that would stop. Remember the high ground that I give to the right coming off the pandemic. There were too many maybes that were made into musts. I think that is a fair criticism, and I also don't think we learned the lesson. Not about the pandemic and not by what we're seeing right now. They weren't sure, masks, social distancing, schools, the vaccine, who should take it, how many times, but they mandated anyway, like they were sure. Now, those same people who were loud and proud about that are quiet when the country is being told, when they are being told, Tylenol is bad, don't take it, there's no upside, when the research does not say that. Remember how we got here. When you were introduced to Joe Rogan, because he was saying this.
I certainly don't want us to lose restaurants either. I don't want us to lose bars. I don't want us to lose comedy clubs. What kind of government overreach are we going to have where people are going to come in and police this? You know, like what, I mean, there's no real science to that either, by the way. You know, they have a bunch of people jammed into a room, whether they're 6 feet apart or not. You're touching things, you're breathing on each other.
Now, I mean, look, nobody's going to ever accuse him of being a white coat or being, you know, a clinician. But that skepticism was never really satisfied by the real answers. Don't cherry pick data. Don't make a maybe into a must. But now this administration's doing it. Where's Joe? Where's everybody? The administration quotes the dean of Harvard, okay, saying Tylenol can cause autism. Now, first of all, they said Harvard was shit. Now it's back. It's great. Okay, fine. Let's put that to the side. The report does not say that. The report found an association between Tylenol and autism. What does that mean? Correlation, not causation. In fact, no, quote, definitive causation. And again, I think you should be careful with Tylenol. That's what the maker of it says. It's not about that. It's about how it's being used. The information, not the drug. We don't know if Tylenol while pregnant causes autism. They got to study it more. The report doesn't say don't take it. The president said don't take it. So now the Harvard dean is distancing himself from what the president said, writing, quote, further research is needed to determine causality. He did say there was a causal association, and I know you all keep sending me this and saying, Cuomo, you're wrong. The dean did say it, and the FDA secretary said it to you. He said that he said it. Yeah, when? Did he say it as part of this research? No. He says what I just told you he said. When did he say there's a causal association with Tylenol? You know when? When he was being paid as an attack dog in a lawsuit against Tylenol. That's when. That case was dismissed after the judge agreed that the dean in that side of the case had cherry-picked data. Exactly what MAGA said they wouldn't do. And the guy obviously has a conflict, which is exactly what I thought Secretary Kennedy was going to say we wouldn't have any more of. We're not going to have our government information and policy influenced by people who have conflicts with Big Pharma. This guy was paid to testify against the people you were just having him look at. And if I'm wrong, why wouldn't the FDA chief on this show echo Trump's words and say, yeah, don't take Tylenol? Why did he also write a letter to doctors saying there is no causal relationship? So if it's at best a maybe, why are they pretending it's a must? My suspicion, there's this artificial deadline to find a cure for autism. And for whatever reason, they believe autism is like the worst thing that can ever happen to somebody. And this is their answer, Tylenol. So what are we really dealing with here? A man I trust and a man I look to for answers. The administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz. Doc, it's great to see you. Everybody should know, not objective on you, but I'll be fair. You're my friend, and I'm happy to have you. So, pregnant woman comes to you, says, hey, my head, I've got a headache. The headache is killing me. I got a fever now. What do I do? What do you say when Tylenol comes into the mix?
If a woman's got a high fever, if she's got bad aches and pains, it makes sense to take a medication like Tylenol. But that's not the question here. This is about transparency. And if I just go back and sort of echo what I think most people should be thinking right now, it comes to one basic question. Should we tell you what we know after all the work that we've done within government or not? In this case, what we believe, after looking not just at the Harvard study, but there were 46 studies, by the way, reported in that endeavor, and most of those studies did raise a concern. It's an association. We don't know that Tylenol causes autism, but this is a bad problem. You don't want to have autism if you can avoid it. And so do we tell a mother, of a future mother, that if she's got mild aches or pains, if she's got a mild fever, she should not happily pop a acetaminophen or Tylenol tablet. She ought to try to avoid it if she's possibly able to, because we don't think anything's really great to take when you're pregnant. And the evidence was enough that after a lot of work, and we've been working on this for 6 months, we decided we would share the early signals, clues that might be valuable. And the key question I would ask to researchers was, if your wife was pregnant, would you recommend that she cut back and use as little of the acetaminophen, Tylenol as possible or not? And most people said, yeah, why would you take more than you need to? That was the main purpose of the information release. The same thing, by the way, for the prescription medication leucovorin. Here's a situation where we believe some children, and the studies are small, but probably 250 kids in aggregate, some children have a problem getting folate, which is a B vitamin, foliage, B vitamin, leafy greens, have trouble getting that into their brain. This prescription medication, again, a doctor has to write it for you, might be an effective way of getting more folate into your brain, and by doing that, maybe help you recover from the autism. In the studies, about half the kids seem to show some benefit. Do we tell you or not? Chris, here's the big fact. To truly know if prescription leucovorin is going to cure autism, we need at least 5 years more of research. To truly know if acetaminophen or Tylenol is dangerous to a pregnant woman and creating autism in a child, at least 5 more years of research. But what do you tell the mom today whose 3-year-old child starts showing signs of autism? What do you tell the mom who's pregnant right now, who's got a very, she stubbed her toe and she thinks, oh my goodness, that hurts, but it's not that bad. Maybe I'll pop a pill. No, the answer to that question is, if you know what I know, you won't just pop the pill. If you have a higher fever, if you've got big aches and pains, call your doc, definitely take the medication.
Doc, if that's what had happened here, you and I would not see each other until there is another story that warrants me banging on your door to ask you to come on. The problem here is a double-edged sword. The president didn't say that. What the president said was wrong. I know he's not a scientist. I know he's not a clinician. I know he's not a doctor. But that's what he said. And then the other edge of the sword is none of you guys can say he's wrong. So now everybody's backpedaling. They're telling me that the Harvard guy agrees with Trump. He said the same thing. He never said the same thing unless he was getting paid to say it. And then it loses the signal in the noise. And the headline is what you just said, that there's now some evidence that maybe we can do something for some kids with autism, which should have been the headline. But it got stepped on, and nobody wants to touch that. Do I have it right or no?
No, Chris. The president literally used many of the words that I'm using right now. There's, especially the material that he read, he very specifically said that we ought to be cautious about using Tylenol. It should be reserved for cases of high fever.
Doc, he said Tylenol is bad. Don't take it. It's not good. Good is not taking it. That's what
Chris,
he said. There's
I
no
was
upside.
there. I was there.
Listen, you don't have to be there to hear it.
I was standing next to him.
Doc, I'll play it right now. It's way closer to what I'm saying than you. Okay.
But he said many things, but he got the words out that I said. Here's the bigger story, Chris. If he had the cure to cancer, because he said it, they would be torn apart. Let me ask the big question to you.
Not
from
here.
a political perspective.
Not here, Doc.
What's the advantage?
Not with me.
No, not. But
Not
what's
with
the
me.
advantage
Not with me, Doc.
to the president talking about this medication? What does he gain out of this? He cares so much about these children. He's so passionate about these. He's been talking about it for years. That when he heard this, because he asks, what's the data? What are you guys finding? Well, the first 2 things we found, we brought to him. He said, those are so important. I want everyone to know. If one woman can take a little less Tylenol in her pregnancy because she doesn't think it's 100% safe, which even the company agrees you shouldn't take if you don't need to, then of course that's a good sign. So you may not agree with the way he said it, but what he said is important. Well, every woman in America who's pregnant now knows it's a concern.
Listen, and that's fine. I'm fine. I said it off the top. Listen, in my household, we don't take anything until we're like a step from death. You know, my wife is like, you take as little of whatever it is. If you have a fever, your body is sending you a message. Let's see what the message is. And I've been sweating for 2 days, okay? Listen, I'm with you. I'm just saying, I know how we got here, and this administration promised better than maybes being twisted into musts. That's why I wanted to have the conversation. And I appreciate you clarifying it, and you're always welcome here to do so, and you are a trusted source for me.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, Dr. Oz, I'll talk to you again. Appreciate you. And people should look up the study about the potential for kids with autism of helping them with vitamin B uptake. That is a very cool thing, and the science on it is as good as anything on the Tylenol side. So it's good to have there, and thank you for talking about it here. Appreciate you, Dr. Oz. We'll do it again. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Again, listen, if Trump says it, it doesn't make it bad to me, okay? It's all about what it is. I don't play that Trump derangement stuff. I want better for this country. And messaging matters, okay? Messaging matters. The division is a problem. How we do things matters. We want better on immigration. So what do? You secure the southern border. I like it. I like it. How about processing? How about due process? How about legal immigration? Why are we getting reports that people are going to Alligator Alley, or whatever you call it, Alligator Alcatraz, and then they can't find them after that. That's not America, okay? That's Venezuela. Is that happening? Why is it happening? Next. We need better out of immigration. The southern border was the easiest part. It is a success. It was good for Trump to do that. It was bad that the Democrats ignored it. But how we process, what ICE does, what we do about legal immigration, okay? We need workers. We need blood in this country, okay? That all matters too. I tracked somebody through their deportation process once, okay? It is a messy process. They are all over the place. They are hard to track. They are hopping around all over the place on the way back out of the country. And this guy was one of the people that should not have been thrown out of this country. He was a beautiful guy who was building a business. He was not here legally, but he was doing the right thing here. And he went back to Honduras and he got shot in the head and killed. And it broke my heart. And it's why I have covered this as intensely as I had down there and here. So what is going on at Alligator Alcatraz? I'm not talking about the conditions in the place. They're litigating that right now, and if they're not good, then they'll close it. That's under appeal. But there are 800 people who have supposedly went there, went somewhere else, but can't be tracked, and 450 more where representatives are trying to get information. They're just told, call ICE. Is this normal? Let's ask the man who ran Homeland Security in Trump's first administration, Chad Wolf, and former ICE director under Obama, John Sandwig. And as you guys know, I'm on board with more for the brothers and sisters doing the job. More resources, more people as staff, more adjudication ability, different rules, more processing ability so they can do the job. I'm for all of it. Congress won't do any of it. But Chad, when you hear these reports that they can't find them and it just says call ICE, how do you take it?
Well, I think there's a couple of things I look at. One is the reporting. I think it's from the Miami Herald, perhaps, which, again, you got to consider the source. Two, moving individuals, ICE detainees from different detention facilities is something that ICE does pretty on a regular basis, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're preparing these individuals for the end state, which is a deportation out of the country. And so you're moving them around, you're finding the right airframe, you're finding them seats on a particular plane, going back to the same country. You're trying to fill up that plane. So there is inherently in the system a lot of movement within that system. So that doesn't surprise me that, you know, there are individuals at one facility that perhaps are no longer there. They've been moved to a different facility, which is sort of to your point earlier, Chris, which is it can be a confusing system. But again, these are mostly almost exclusively individuals that are in detention because they are being deported out of the country because, again, they don't have a legal right to be in the United States. So could there always be more transparency? Sure. I'm sure I think most people would agree with that. But the inherent nature of what ICE does to get these individuals into a bed, out of a bed, onto a flight line, and then eventually removed back to their home country is a very difficult thing to do.
I agree. And I acknowledge that. And the report about the Guatemalan man who was sent out and they sent him out before he had his hearing, I get that that happens also. But I'm not talking about transparency. This is really a due process thing, John, which is you want to get rid of them. You want to get rid of them. They're not here legally. You rounded them up. That's the political mandate. It's the legal mandate. Fine. But you do it the right way in America, right?
Yeah, Chris, you got to do it with treat people with dignity and respect. Look, this is a tough business. Chad is right. We're moving people around. ICE does a lot of transfers. They're staging people. But you got a couple of things going on here. We've had this massive expansion of detention very quickly. We have the agency under a lot of pressure. We have a lot of changing legal authorities. We have brand new facilities that are coming online that are not yet plugged into the detainee locator. So we're in a rush here. And unfortunately, the byproduct of that is you're exactly right. Limited transparency, limited access for lawyers, limited access for family members. Look, I understand this is the president's mission. I don't disagree that ICE does need to have this ability to transfer detainees around. But you got to do all of this in a way that respects that due process and does treat people with dignity and respect. Doesn't mean they're going to get released. Doesn't mean they won't be deported. But give their family an opportunity to know where that loved one is. Give their lawyer an opportunity to consult with their client as they go through the process.
Also, there's a next phase. I want your guys' take on it. This is where I believe this goes. I don't think Congress gets it done. They just suck. And they're just rewarded for going at it with each other in opposition as a position. And they're not going to make any deals. We're going to get another continuing resolution. You know, we know the whole deal, okay? We're in a bad place. So we're not going to get the reform we need. The next step is employers coming back to the president, Chad, and saying, listen, I need these guys. okay? If you want these businesses to stay up and going, we got 7.5 million open jobs already. A lot of these are good people. And he is going to agree with it, and his right flank is going to go crazy. Is there a way, Chad, to separate the ones you need who should stay from those who have to go?
Well, look, I think there is. I do agree with you on a couple of different fronts. One, this is Congress's job. Our legal immigration system hasn't been reformed in decades. They need to do their job. Yeah. I'm doubtful, as you are, that they will actually do that. So then it falls to the president and his administration to use the powers of the executive branch to make the changes that you can. You can't wholesale change legal immigration. It's only up to Congress. But what you can do is to make it more efficient, vet them quicker, get them into the country, right? We talk about H-1B, which are the high-skilled visas. We also talk in this debate a lot about the agricultural workers, right, which also comes down.
Right.
These are uncapped visas. I think we have over 400,000 workers today on an H-2A visa, which is an agricultural visa. You could have another 200,000 if you wanted, but you need better vetting, you need better processing, and more efficiency. So there are things that the Trump administration is currently doing that can help that.
Good. I appreciate it, Trad. John, I owe you an answer. I got to jump. I'm messing up time tonight because I've had too much news. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'll be right back. Yes. Quickly, I see what's being said. Cruz did not nail Comey. It's coming down to a question of fact for your jury, and there's going to be a trial, and we'll cover it. On immigration, you can get rid of people who aren't here legally, and you can do it the right way. And we have to give them more resources, and Congress hasn't done it. That's how you get better. I'll be right back. Promises made, promises kept, Leland. Trump said he was going to go after his political opponents. No, now we see it. Jim Comey, first one up.
Yeah, and that's what he got elected to do, right? It said it all the time out on the campaign trail. Chris, nice show.